Okay, so my question for you is, how's the energy level doing? How's everyone holding up? Did you get your coffee? Well, I'm about to turn up the energy level in the room by several orders of magnitude. For those of you who don't know Ben Smithee, I like to call him the human shot of double espresso. And he's going without a net. He doesn't have a presentation. He's an expert in not only research, but in social media, and he's an all-around good guy. So without any further ado, let me introduce Ben Smithee.
Thank you, Dana. All right, we're going to switch it up a little bit. Some of you have seen me present before. Anyone? A couple of you? All right, a couple. That really hurts my feelings. So this is my one and only slide, and if you've seen me present before, you'll know that, and we can probably turn this down just a tad, because that might be, boom. A lot of people know my presentations through like just tons of images and one-word slides, and we go through about, in a 60-minute presentation, I'll generally go through about 120 slides. But I said, screw all that shit today, we're just gonna talk. Because all the social media stuff, when Dana asked me to do the social stuff, you're not going to get the value from me sitting here showing you slides on how to do a Facebook dark post or an unpublished post, or how to, incorporate hashtag strategies or Instagram or whatever it may be on LinkedIn or blogs, because you can learn all that via simple search and watching a YouTube video. That's not really adding that much value. So what I wanted to talk about today is kind of what we did. What I did when I started my firm and how I got going, and I want to leave the majority of the questions after I talk about kind of how that's evolved and where we're going next, the majority of the time for Q&A. Does that sound fair to everybody? Yeah. Cool? Everybody's already energized a little bit more, and I like that. So only thing I ask is that you stay engaged. If you have a question throughout, feel free to jump in and ask away. Cool? Rockin'. So for those of you that don't know me, and some of you that do know me from conferences but don't really know kind of the background, I started Spike officially back in October of 2009, so almost 5 years ago. I was pretty much about a year out of undergrad and had about a year's experience doing pharmaceutical market research. I lived in hotels in this city for about 6 months, just talking to different pharma companies and traveling around the world, interviewing doctors in the one-on-one interview setting. And we thought innovation was really cool when we started doing dyads and triads and mini groups instead of just one-on-one interviews, right, in the pharma setting. But I wanted to do something cool and hip and new and on the consumer side, and so I did the best thing ever in the year of 2009 at the best time ever to start a company. And I realized I had no budget and no real experience, so I had to figure out a way to differentiate myself and our firm, which was one person at the time, myself and my business partner. And what we really did was started heavily on this thing called social media. So we were using it for research because everybody was saying, oh, this is just a fad, and people would kind of laugh me out of the room a little bit when I'd present. Because people are like, oh, why the hell would anybody care what people are saying on Twitter about what they had for lunch or when they're going to the bathroom? And I said, but you know what? Frito-Lay cares very much what I'm having for lunch. McDonald's cares what I'm having for lunch. And Charmin and Angelsoft care very much when I'm going to the bathroom. And so it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it, right? But so social became a way for us to differentiate ourselves, not only from a services offering, but it really became the main way that we were marketing our firm and growing our client base. And really, if you hear what the client panel had to say today, every single person in this room is a content creator. Is everybody on board with that? Everybody in here is a content creator, either passive or active, meaning you're creating a digital footprint, you're creating some sort of socialized content. And today, every piece of that content is social. Meaning, if I create a print flyer or a print advertisement or a direct snail mail piece, it's still a social piece. And if it's not, one could argue that it's not being very effective if people aren't talking about it in some way, shape, or form. So I believe everybody in here is a content creator. Some of us just make more money at it than others. And make our companies more money at it than others. And the reason I say that is because the platforms are changing so quickly, and everybody struggles to keep up with this magical, mystical social media thing. And I could sit here and wow you with slides full of different social tools and ways to hack into different things, but it's really useless because the core thing that people miss is the fundamental sort of base foundation of what makes social work for brands, right? And the core foundation is people. right? One-to-one interaction, and we try to screw it up as marketers by trying to go many to one. When you looked at the panel today, what were they talking about when they said, how do they consume information? Were they sitting down there saying they read textbooks? Were they sitting down there, they read through their mail and their snail mail and find out about new companies? Were they saying that they did a sort of a targeted search online via Bing or Google or any other sort of new hip trying to come up and coming search engine out there? No, they were saying, how did they hear about it mainly? They read some blogs, got an email about it, but really how they heard about it was colleague referrals, right? Which is extremely the definition of a social media channel, right? But in an in-person basis. And within that, arguably not one time did I hear them say, I'm going out and searching for new content online. I'm going out and searching for new supplier partners or new partners online, right? So then the question came up about websites. Well, websites are important. Websites are obviously how they're going to land upon your page. But index search and through all of that type of stuff, and I hate to break anybody's hearts in the room, but index search is really, really broken in my opinion in terms of the search and find. Because what comes up first whenever you do a sort of a categorical search online via a search engine? The stupid little yellow links that I refuse to click on based on principle alone, right? Because it's whoever paid to be up first. But I changed my thought on that recently because I said, you know what? Somebody's spending money every time I click on that link. So now when I see that link, I click on it a million times. That'll screw them. But then what comes up after that? What comes up after the paid for advertisements on a categorized search, on a sort of a standard traditional search mechanism? The most widely read-ish, right? It's whoever, one, had their sort of SEO ninja go in there and optimize their site to come up first, right? It's still sort of pay to play, if you will. There's very few people and there's small content out there that ranks highest. And I'll tell you this because of this. Some friends of mine, I was just meeting with them, actually people that I go to church with. We said, how can you break the social funnel? How can you break content marketing? So we created something, there's a site out there on NASCAR, and then there's another site that they created with a political site. And now, after just a few months, via social media, 100%, so no other form of advertising other than social and some index, some SEO, essentially just to make sure the page indexes. But they're driving anywhere from 30 to 60,000 views a day. Are they experts in NASCAR? Hell no. Are they experts in political polling or political campaigning? No. What they did is they found traffic, they found a content that works, they found a baseline of content, and then they found ways in which to funnel content there via the social tools that are available to all of us today. Now, that being said, how much time do you really want to spend on optimizing your website for SEO? It doesn't matter, right? My first website, did anyone in here see my first website for Spike? When we started, it was this crazy website that had this magical spinning wheel, and aliens popped up, and like a mother goose came out and laid an egg, and then there was this old dude that was trying to act hip because we were focused on millennials, and we wanted to show that a lot of people fake it and fake that they know millennials, but they're really just kind of posers. That website, I don't even want to tell you how much that website costs. I had to save up a lot of pennies for that website. Our latest website, $1,500, and it works magically, right? Because it tells the story. The other concept, I want to go into just a few concepts before we go into straightforward Q&A. The first one is owned versus operated. A lot of you interact with me, and I interact with a lot of you or a lot of your colleagues on a daily basis via social and via the socialized web, right? And how many of the content that you've seen from me, other than stuff that's from like my personal Twitter or the Spike Twitter account, really comes from the Spike webpage or the Spike blog or the Spike YouTube channel? Nobody in here has probably seen, except for maybe old school blogs that I wrote back in the day. Jeff probably seen a couple of them. But other than that, the reason why I didn't go toward owned content creation is because I had no audience. And back in the day when I started, it wasn't a lot of researchers reading a lot of blogs. Views were way low, and getting any interaction or commentary on it was even lower. Just we were a bunch of lurkers, right? We'd consume a lot of information, but we weren't really engaging in the blog arenas. And so for me to create a channel, for me to create my own website, my own blog, create my own video channel, and all of this as a company of 1, 2, up to now 5 people, it It was impossible for me to be able to have the bandwidth, the money, and the expertise in all of these different channels to do it right and drive sales through spending my time in social. How many of you feel the exact same way right now? In terms of, there's a million things I could do, I have to create a million different assets and maintain them on a day-to-day basis, right? It's impossible, let alone trying to make a buck doing your day job. So I went with the theory of not necessarily owning, but occupying, right? So where you see the content that you've seen me produce has been me occupying Greenbook's blog, or IIEX video channels, or TMRE. You've seen a lot of stuff. I'll MC and chair the TMRE conference through IIR, and there's a bunch of different stuff where I'll occupy other people. Other people have the eyeballs, I'll rent out that eyeball space for a while and be the content expert on that. But what it allowed me to do was build up a significant amount of social cred without having to invest in any of my own assets, right? So when they were talking and all these people were talking, you know, the best thing I started doing was guest posting on other people's blogs in the beginning. Then it was, you know, doing every video interview I could at every conference I could out there, because I was generating eyeball traffic on the brand without having it to be on the Spike brand that nobody was going to. We didn't index very high, right? My first website was 100% Flash, if you want to talk about SEO, right? You couldn't even access it on your damn iPhone, right? That's a plug for Microsoft there, by the way. So from then on, I said, okay, I'm just going to occupy media. My whole concept for social was about occupying space. Find out where the eyeballs are going. People like Greenbook. People like Quirks. People like MRA newsletters. Figure out a way to write for those. Figure out how to write for Alert Magazine, and then tweet the heck out of it when it would come out, and make sure it started trending and getting it on the eyeballs and on the fingertips of everybody else out there. Just now, almost 5 years later, am I ready to switch that over to owned media, right? So within the next year, our biggest play for 2015 is going to be owned media creation, right? I'm now thinking of, okay, how do I own the media channel? How am I going to own the media? Because nobody out there right now is owning the media space for MR, and especially for marketing as an overarching thing, right? We have individuals that own space, like Seth Godin, some would say, even Malcolm Gladwell a little bit, even though he's not in a pure marketing space. You have TED Talks, but there's not this overarching, you know, you have AMA that does it some, but would anybody say there's a clear leader as a knowledge source and a hub for media related to marketing or marketing research, right? So that's my next thing, is how do we get Spike, or how do we get, you know, X, Y, and Z entity to own that media space? Because I've done occupying it to build a following. Now how do we convert that to ownership? The second principle I want to talk about is really that social versus SEO. That SEO, we talked a little bit about how we're driving traffic, right? So, and the biggest thing, here's the one tactic I'll get into right now. The biggest way to drive traffic, and does anybody in here work for a sample company or panel companies, or work with sample and panel companies? So the biggest thing right now I'd be investing in is Facebook dark posts and Facebook unpublished posts. You can drive traffic and likes for literally like 3 to 5 cents. And it's ridiculous. It's the cheapest way out there to drive eyeballs. And you can do it in such a targeted content. Does everybody know what I'm talking about when I say dark post or unpublished post? Does anybody know what I'm talking about when I say dark post or unpublished post? All right, now we're going to step our social game up. Facebook dark posts are officially called Facebook unpublished posts. So you have a Facebook fan page, right? And generally, how would you produce content? You'd write your post and you'd hit post or share, and all of a sudden it would come out on your fan page, and then less than 1% of your fans will do it unless you pay Facebook money to have it exposed to all your fans, right? Capiche? Got it. Now what you can do is this Facebook dark post. And what you can do is create targeted ads or targeted inline content that will post from your brand and drive traffic to whatever link that you want to associate with that. But it's not necessarily one post you have to keep spamming to all the people that follow your brand. If I'm a panel and I wanted to go after 18 to 21-year-old females that liked skateboarding, BMX, the X Games, action adventure sports, and liked Tony Hawk, I can create a piece of creative that 100% targets that demographic. Then go after African American males that like chess, J. Crew, and the new releases of AJ1 retro shoes. and target an ad that goes directly toward that and launch it and create custom creative that goes along with it. And all of this stuff, we're starting to see tremendous returns. It's the first time where we're really seeing monetary in to monetary out from social media, and especially from Facebook. So check it out. I'm telling you right now, the reason I don't have a whole tutorial on it is because you can go online and you can get a million tutorials that are way more in-depth and way better than anything I'm going to give you in a 20-minute presentation. So Facebook dark posts, Facebook unpublished posts, check it out. It's worth the money. Try it. That's what the primary thing my friends are using to drive content for those sites. It's absolutely ridiculous. The next thing are the same principles that I've applied from day one to day 5 years later. And that's the 4 A's of what I consider any foundation for social. And the first, and it goes like this. So it's attention, affinity, acquisition, advocacy. Attention, affinity, acquisition, advocacy. So once you decide which space you want to play in, once you decide if we want to create, sort of that social capital, it's really about the 4 A's and across all platforms, across all social media channels, I would say across all marketing channels in general. And so attention. In Facebook, I'll use Facebook as sort of the platform for this, but it's essentially am I getting people's attention? Are people seeing my content, right? And once they see it, do I catch their attention in some sort of way that gives them the opportunity to click like, share, comment, right? Generally, what we equate that to is something of something shocking or something breaking in terms of news. It could be something that's just beautiful and aesthetic or creative, or it could be something that's funny in nature, right? But the first thing you have to do is stop and get their attention. And the way you do that is targeting your content toward that audience. If you don't know your audience and you're not really, for B2B, right? And people, the funniest question I always get asked is, yeah, but can you do all this social media stuff for B2B? And people don't realize that my company is a B2B company. That's all we've done is B2B social media. And so it could be targeting your industry. So if I'm trying to go after Fortune 500 CPG companies, right, and research directors or insights managers at those Fortune 500 companies, what is the content they're reading? What are the things people are searching for? And that's easy enough to see through some LinkedIn stalking, right? That's how I do it. That's how I source what I want my content sort of structure to be around, is what are things searching for? What are people reading on LinkedIn? What do I see those, my clients that I'm already linked in, what type of content do I see them consuming? And sometimes that's some old school research is I send them an email and say, hey, what are the coolest things you've read lately? And we create content based on that. So everything that we post, every part of social media that I go into and occupy somebody else's social media, I figure out the reason and what my motive is for going to occupy that. That's attention. The second one is affinity. So in order to get them to click that like button, what do they have to do? It has to have some sort of affinity for it, preferably in a positive way, right? And hopefully we can take that and we can turn that affinity into an acquisition, because that's where we really, really want it. Acquisition really comes about after affinity, because we can't really do something with it until we have really fully grasped their attention. So in that's why you see things like sports and politics get so much banter online and social, right? Because there's that strong affinity towards something and that strong passion index toward one thing or another. So one thing that I think we really fail on as marketing professionals in research is, somebody's gonna start dancing now. Normally I make people answer it on speakerphone in the presentation, but we'll save you the embarrassment. So I lost my train of thought, but we're talking about affinity and passion. The biggest thing that we lack in research is some sort of passion or anything that drives affinity, because half of the stuff we post is boring as hell. I'm not gonna lie. We talk about sampling methods, or we talk about new statistical analysis, methodologies and things like that, or the new tracking study or new tracking methods. Why do we not apply these to anything that's super exciting? We get so caught up in methodological accuracy and everything that is important, but we forget the human aspect of it. And if you forget the human aspect of it, it's impossible to build passion around it, which then leads to some sort of acquisition, right? The other thing people fail at most in social is an ability to acquire some sort of IP. And what I mean by IP is meaning an email address, a contact information, a like on your personal page, on your company's page, to where you can stay in contact with them. It drops off. I'll see beautifully done creative. I'll see very targeted mechanisms in terms of posting stuff and getting my attention. I even like it. And then all of a sudden I look for a way in which I can stay and keep getting more good content, sexy content, and it's gone. There's no way to do it. Or they completely bring me out of the channel. So I'm on Facebook, they got my attention, they targeted me because they know I'm on Facebook, and then all of a sudden, what do? They try to pull me to their website, and then an email capture, and I'm like, do I like it that much that I want them to spam my email inbox? No, I'll go look at this BuzzFeed top 10 list, right? That's what happens to all of us. So keep them in channel. Keep them in channel social. Social's advanced enough that you can get the right information you need from an in-channel perspective, right? There's plenty of application plugins, there's plenty of mechanisms within Facebook, there's plenty of mechanisms within Twitter, and things you can use to get data capture right in line. Don't make people start shifting platforms until you've already built a relationship with them, right? And then the last thing is obviously advocacy, and we take advocacy, and that's the most important, because that's generally the next customer or the next opportunity, the next client's exposure for attention. Right? And that's the easiest way to build attention, is through advocacy through someone else, right? That's exactly what the clients were talking about on the panel up here. So whether and I can give you examples during Q&A if you want an example of how we apply it through all the different channels. But really, we take that same approach to every single campaign we run, every single time we work on somebody else's campaign, and every single marketing piece that we do for us is the 4 A's. And we literally go through that strategically with every execution we do. Outside from that, what I want to do now is kind of open the floor for questions and make it easy for you guys to get some value one-on-one and ask me questions what you're doing on social and how we can help you out. Cool? Tell me there's going to be some questions, otherwise I'm going to start dancing and singing, and I'm going to start answering random facts about myself. My full name is Benjamin Walter Smithee. I live in Dallas, Texas. I grew up in Arlington, Texas. All right.
All right, Ben, stop. Okay, so our company's on Twitter, it's on Facebook, it's on LinkedIn. What else should it be on? Should it be on Instagram, or is that something for my kids? Or
what is your company?
Beta Research, which is, I'll say, a woman-owned full-service market research company.
Full-service market research. Who are you trying to target? I mean, where are your dollars coming from?
God willing, CPG, retail, pharma, media, organizations, associations.
Do you have your own panel or database?
No.
No?
I mean, when you say database, I mean a big panel, like a survey sampling or something.
So the only application for what I'm seeing in your business for Instagram is what I use Instagram for. And that's just making sure that all of my friends and colleagues in the industry know what I'm doing and keep me top of mind, right? Other than that, the reason why I have friends with many of you on Instagram and stuff like that is only to stay top of mind. I want them to know that, first of all, I'm relevant, because social is very relevant for my target group in terms of millennials and Gen Y. Other than that, I use Instagram personally, and I use it to keep up with my colleagues so they're always thinking about me and I'm top of mind. Other than that, is there a business? Am I going to start posting, my USP on Instagram for my clients to see or potential clients? No, because that's not where they're buying, right? For you, I'd focus 100% of my time on some sort of blogging, short form video. If you're not doing short form video,
when you say that, on what platform?
So two different things. I used to be a big fan of saying, you know what? I hate YouTube because at the end, I can't control the content that pops up related to my brand. And I can't control that, next to the Spike blog about millennial research in teens, there's going to be some half-naked chick dancing on a pole on a video that says suggested next content, right? Because that is based on what you like to Google and search and on your time, not on mine. And I don't want your naughty search habits based on my brand. However, if you're not posting content on YouTube, you're missing a lot of link juice. You're just missing a lot of it. So my strategy, where we're moving to, is we're going to host a lot of stuff on aggregate video storage, so YouTube, Vimeo, things like that. But we're really going to drive that traffic and really drive traffic to seeing it natively on our site. So when we post videos, or when I'm building the media hub, we have a media hub that's going to live on our site, We're going to host the videos there, obviously post them through other aggregate softwares, but we're driving traffic to our website.
What's the content for those videos? Is it talking about a service, talking about your employees, talking about the history of the company? I mean, to get some emotional connection? What are the videos?
Yes. So for me, the answer is yes. For us, for me, right, for my company, it works as sort of thought leadership. That's 100% of my focus. I do interviews with other people in the industry. I do presentations on different topics and being positioned as the expert on the topic, and I share that content. I want people to find me for that, right? For you, it may be, what do you specialize in anything in CPG?
I'll say quantitative work, but also social media, focus groups.
Okay, so pick one and start building content and attracting eyeballs for that, right? 2-minute videos, pick someone that's good on camera, and that does matter. We live in a shallow society. We're not going to watch some dumbass on the camera just because he's talking about good things if he has no camera personality. It's the truth. It's funny because it's true, right? The video quality doesn't matter as long as I can hear you, man. People will watch 2 minutes of really crappy video if I can hear them, but they'll turn it off if they have 10 seconds of crappy audio, right? So for me, it's thought leadership. That's what really drives eyeballs in the research industry. It's thought leadership. It's new, innovative stuff. And then hearing from client-side people. If you can do client-side interviews, I promise you're going to get views. And then you have to convert those views from client-side videos to methodological expertise. That's our way of doing it, right? That's why you sit down, and I sat down at IEX and did 50 video interviews with experts in our industry. Why? Because now it puts my brand next to them, and now I have content, right? Good question. Checks in the mail.
Hey, good stuff, Ben. How
Thanks.
important do you think kind of consistency across channels is, and would you open the social media platforms up to everyone? Do you centralize it with 1 or 2 people? How dangerous are kind of people going rogue on social media?
Here's the deal. I'm disappointed in social in some ways, and it's just really starting to become sticky. Because for a small brand, a social flub up can make or break you, right? For a bigger brand, the lifespan and the memory of social is still really short, man. Right? How many of you really are super impacted day to day by the Susan G. Komen and Planned Parenthood incident that came out, last year? Right? How many of you just now are reminded by it for the first time when I mentioned it? Right? And how big that owned social media, right? So now we're starting to see a little bit of stickiness, I'm still seeing new Ice Bucket Challenge videos, right? So I'm proud of that the lifespan of social is getting bigger. So I don't think it's necessarily you have to be this guardian and lock and key, right? There's plenty of smart people out there now that know social and know the ins and outs that you can open the gates to controllably, right? What was the other question on the first part?
Just kind of consistency.
Consistency across channels is not as important as consistency of what your message is, because you shouldn't change based on the channel. Your message and your goals should be the same. How you execute it and the buttons you push per channel is the only thing that changes, right? But I'm not using the same voice on Instagram as I am on Facebook. I'm not using the same, and I only started now pushing stuff from my Instagram to Facebook via the native thing, just because they opened it up. Before, you'd get horrible sort of penetration through sharing on Instagram. Now you get really good stuff because they own it, right? Go figure. But for that, my voice changes across a lot of different things. Now, people can still very much say, oh, that's Ben, right? If we wrote a blog post, they're going to know that that has the Spike feel to it or whatever it may be. But across platforms, you have to change your, like LinkedIn, I'm not swearing and stuff. Well, sometimes I might, but it works, right? Twitter, I use Twitter really just to share stuff. People don't follow me because I post a lot of original content on Twitter. People follow me because I know what content's good out there, and if I post it out there, people will read it, right? So I really use it as like sort of a virtual DJ for content.
Got a question over here.
Yep.
Doing blog posts, doing video, doing audio, that's all about building authority, because you can basically get out your thoughts and your processes, and you can make yourself look great to the potential market you're going to. What about infographics? I haven't heard much talked about that today. Is that purely for sharing, or is that also a way of establishing authority?
I wouldn't say infographics are establishing authority. I think the content within the infographic is establishing authority, right? That's the true meat of it. Infographics show that you know how to like get people's attention, right? Infographics show that I know how to tell a compelling story in a way that the audience wants to digest that compelling story versus long form blogs, right? Long form blog used to be, I used to write only long form blog posts, right? The stuff that Jeff was like, don't do that shit. That was all I did. And now I know the attention span is 140 characters. So my blog posts are real short. In my infographics now, that's honestly one of the next like people that I'm partnering with that I interviewed the other day are graphic designers to do our stuff for our reports, for our marketing stuff, because that's how people want to read it, right?
So fit into your marketing strategy?
So for us, it's more a deliverable thing. But I mean, because we don't do a lot of syndicated data reports.
So it's not about getting attention or shareability or building.
It could be. If I owned a panel and I wanted to do some research on research, or I wanted to do some consumer polls, right? If I had a panel, 100% of what I would be doing is engaging, keeping that panel engaged and keeping my potential clients engaged by releasing information, right? Doing consumer studies. Before the iPhone comes out, I would say, I would have 5 different studies on iPhone versus Windows Phone versus Samsung Galaxy in consumer polls, BuzzFeed, top 10 stuff. The deal is that research companies were BuzzFeed polls 10 years before BuzzFeed even existed. BuzzFeed just did it in a way that was sexy and digestible, right? And they put it on social media. So for us, if it doesn't fit in my marketing strategy, but if I was a panel company, if I did syndicated research, if I did quant research, I'd be doing that stuff all day long, and it would be in sort of visual content format. Does that answer? So I can't say yes, it's part of mine, but if I was positioned in if I was some of the other people in this room, I'd be doing that stuff left and right.
How relevant, sorry, how relevant is Google Plus?
Here's why Google Plus matters. I don't post anything on Google Plus, right? That's not why it matters. When you set up a website on the back, and I'm not a website like design expert, I'm not a usability expert, I understand it enough to be dangerous. But to plug in, people still use this search engine called Google quite a bit, right? And to plug it in and be indexed, Google Plus has these things called, Google Plus cards and things, right? And so that's why when you search for something, that image on the right, the top right section of the search box comes up with an image and sometimes some data points, right? So the websites plug in Google via Google Plus-ish type of information. And to me, that's the biggest value of it, right? Is to plug it in and make sure it's indexable. But some people live and die by it. I got a friend, Chris Yates in Dallas. He's got this company called Huddle Productions, and all he does is Google Plus Hangout stuff. Like, that's all he does for his content creation. And that could be a platform that you choose to do. It's not something I use. I haven't met too many businesses that like live and breathe or pay the bills based on anything they do with Google Plus. It's just, is anybody in here actively post on Google Plus?
Possibly.
2, 3 people, right? So it could be very specialized, but if you're targeting 1 hour a day to social, that's not where I'm spending my 1 hour. Is that a fair answer?
Sure.
Okay, one last question for Ben.
My question is about different targets. Mm-hmm. So for us, we have obviously our clients, and then we also have a qualitative shop.
Okay.
And so we've got our respondents and we've got our clients. And
so you have your own panel, or
yes,
okay,
yeah. But we're not focused on the quant. We're focused on the qualitative side of the business. And the messaging that we're giving to both is very different. So trying to figure out what to post on Facebook versus LinkedIn versus all these different sites is really challenging for us, and driving followers to those different sites. Do we want our clients to be in the same space as our respondents, or vice versa? And we struggle with that on a very regular basis when we're dealing with social media.
If I owned your company's marketing, here's exactly what I'll do. And I'll tell you, it'd be the same thing if I owned people own any type of database in here, right? And I needed to recruit for that, for one, and stay relevant to that community of consumers, and then stay relevant to my client-based people that pay me checks, right? So first of all, I would dedicate the majority of my resources to making sure I was an opinion leader for that client. I would also lead them to show, hey, I also have a great relationship with consumers via this sub-brand and via these categorical pages that I've created on Facebook. And I don't know why people haven't done this. If I owned Schlesinger, Fieldwork, Eleni, anybody that has a large consumer database, I would create 1 million categorical Facebook fan pages, right? For foodies, for soccer moms, for car lovers, for all of this, and create content on there that engages them and then convert them to advocates for my research panel, right? So I would create all of these different sub-brands, right, that were sponsored by, here's your time for a shout out.
Consumer centers.
Consumer centers, right? That shows I can create a relationship with these consumers, right? And then show my clients, here's how we're managing these relationships. Oh, not only do we have their contact information and get them to participate in research, but I also communicate with them in channel, in their own relevant ways. We have Twitter followings for these many people. We have Facebook followings. And all of a sudden, your database has increased by how many thousands and increased exponentially because we have contacts for them, we have email, now we also have a relationship with them on social media, which someone would say is arguably even more important today. Am I right? Hopefully you all learned something, got some sort of interest peaked out, or at least you're awake. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben.